Representing the Federalist Party is Paul Babarek from the town of Paris. Representing the Nationalist Party is Cole Moran from the town of Carroll. I am proud to introduce our guest moderator for this evening's debate, a 2004 Boys State delegate and Boys Nation delegate, Henry Beck, who represents the 76th District of Waterville and parts of Oakland for the Maine House of Representatives. And he's be going over the rules of tonight's debate and also presenting all the questions, and he may ask a few questions from the audience. So here's Representative Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and welcome to Waterville. Welcome to our two great candidates. When I came to Boys State in 2004, I didn't make it as far as them, and I won't take it out on them tonight. I'm going to ask about 10 questions, some of which I've written, some of which may come from the audience. I won't answer the questions for you, but please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or ask me to repeat the question. Some questions will be easy, some will be hard. Just be sure to answer the question. Be sure to smile too. We're going to begin with opening statements with the Federalist candidate, Mr. Babarek.
Again, I would like to thank my town, my county, and my party for getting me here today. So I'm here today to explain my platform and talk about the Nationalist platform. And I'm going to be talking to you boys about how our platform may seem small when you look at it. It may seem small, but you see concrete details under each one. You flip the page and you see very vague terms. And I'm going to explain that to you and talk about why you want concrete versus abstract. I have experience moderating our party. I can moderate if I'm chosen as governor. I have the experience, I have the ability, and the governor will need to moderate. And vote for me. Yeah.
I'd just like to say thank you to my party for the nomination.
Anytime,
really appreciate
man.
it. A lot of great candidates. I really appreciate being out here today. I first want to talk about kind of two things. First, myself, and also what our party stands about. Myself, I am all about sort of the common man experience at Boys State. As governor, I want people to be involved. I want the regular guy to be involved. I want him to be heard. Whether it is you have, just a silly bill to pass, or you have something that you're really serious about, I want to hear everybody. I don't identify with a very specific ideology like a lot of people do. Liberal, moderate, conservative. I like to keep it open. I can only run as me, and that's all I can do. As far as appointments go, I can't go around and promise people stuff if they vote for me. I just can't do that. I want it to be fair and open to everybody. And as far as our national party platform, I think we have a great, moderate, very centrist platform that a lot of people can support. We're doing a lot of things. We want to balance the budget. We want to not put a burden on small business or families in the state of Dirigo, and we want to increase revenue for our state and increase the quality of life. And that's our main goals. Thank you.
The first question is a common one, and it's pretty basic. It'll be for Mr. Babarek. What, as governor, will you do to bring more jobs to Dirigo? Can a governor do this in a national or international economy? What's your plan for the economy and jobs?
Okay, so if you look at my platform, it's really straightforward and you can understand it. Concrete, not abstract. We want offshore drilling. 2,500 jobs estimated. I know the issue with that is oil spills, and the thing that comes to your mind is BP. That wasn't an American company, there aren't as many regulations, and we would only allow American companies to drill off the shore coast of Maine. Nuclear power. Again, some may not think it's safe, but American companies are more regulated than anything else. East-West highway. Another big thing, we don't have one. We want one. We want to create it and have it privately funded so that we aren't paying out of it. All of these would bring a lot of jobs, nuclear power especially. Many jobs are concentrated in the removal of the waste alone in nuclear power. That's not even building the plant and running the plant. Just removing the waste alone creates hundreds of jobs. So you can follow my platform, easy to understand, and you can grab and hold on to it and understand what I want and what I want to push through legislation, not a vague term that you have no idea what I'm talking about.
There's actually 2 minutes per question. I apologize about that. Mr. Moran, you do have a 1-minute response.
I think the Federalists have a lot of great ideas about how to create jobs. I think they have a lot of the same theories as we do. However, as governor, I go about it a little differently in pushing the LDs through the joint sessions and the Congress that we have here at Dirigo State. I think that as we are going to be, mimicking the state of Maine, that in a recessionary economic time, it's really hard to start a lot of the public works projects that the Federalists have put forward. It costs a lot of money up front, and right now, we just don't have that money. Down the road, those are great ideas. We don't have it right now. My ideas are to focus on small business rather than these big businesses that would open offshore drilling. We want to take advantage of the natural beauty of our state. For a long time, tourism has been a huge industry in our state, and we want to provide, what we're looking at is hiking the sales tax by 1% to increase revenue that we gain in our state. Sales tax is paid by a lot of out-of-state people. That takes a burden off people in our state and throws it on out-of-state people, increases the amount of money in our economy, and actually will help us improve jobs. As far as public works projects we want to go more towards hydro and solar power. We think those are a little cheaper things to get into rather than nuclear, which would be a lot harder to do as we've already had wind and solar in our state. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. This next question is for you. For better or worse, even elections for governor are influenced by the way voters see the president. What grade would you give Barack Obama, and why?
On what kind of scale?
Just in general.
In general? All right. I would give the president probably on a scale of 1 to 10, a 6. I think our president right now has had a lot of great promises at the beginning. I think when he got into office, some great things were started out, and I think a lot of those things started to peter out. He didn't keep as many promises. Not really as much change happened as we would have liked, and I think right now we need to have a political mindset where people are more innovators rather than just saying that they're going to do something, getting in there and then just following the party line. We want people who can think for themselves, stand up, men and women who will be able to stand on their own 2 feet and say what they believe in rather than a party line executive.
I would say if you look at what President Barack Obama has done, it would be not much. Yes, you could say he got Obamacare, but it's not even enacted yet, and it will most likely be appealed. Other than that, he can't run on his record because he hasn't done anything. That's what I would say.
You mentioned Obamacare, you mentioned health insurance. Right now there are about 14,000 people in the state of Dirigo who make just a little bit too much to qualify for Medicaid, which is state health insurance. But they do work full-time, they have children on Medicaid. Dirigo would be one of the few states to offer this benefit. And so while people have coverage, the cost does come from the taxpayers. Would you support this kind of health insurance program for working parents? Would you make the coverage available?
Yes, I would. I believe that Medicare has been working pretty well in Maine, and the Federalist Party would like to continue to support the Medicare. In terms of increasing it a lot, the Federalists would say no. It's very expensive, and if you increase it that much, it would be hard to keep it going. Like you see with Social Security now, it's predicted that it will collapse in 10 or 15 years. So we are on board with Medicare and keeping it alive, but as in increasing it, we would have to say no.
Just for review, should the state offer this kind of health insurance benefit for parents that do work with children, even though other states don't offer the same kind of coverage and it can be expensive?
I think that getting into a debate like that's a little dangerous. If you keep bumping up the line to certain people, it excludes others, and you don't know really where to stop that line. If you go this far, who's to know that you don't go to the next step, and it'll always be one step down the road. What Nationalists have proposed is that we offer a public option in our state that is absolutely 100% not mandatory. We want to provide a public healthcare option that would be competitive with insurance companies, however not diminish their bottom line and would not in any way hinder their business in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Now, switching gears a bit, Mr. Babarak, should same-sex couples in Dirigo be allowed to legally marry? Why or why not?
This was a tough topic, and we had to discuss it in great depth. And what we came up with what we wanted to keep the definition of marriage as between man and woman. Because if you change the definition, you can go down a slippery slope. And I'm not kidding at all. There are groups that say people should be able to marry animals, or mothers should be able to marry sons. It's called the Oedipus complex for the mother and son, by the way. And if you change the definition and you change it to it should be love, then people can love whatever they want. They can love their mom and want to marry their mom, but as we know, that is immoral and disagreeable. And so if you change a definition like that, you have to be very careful with what can happen next because of judge rulings and stuff like that. And so what we said is we would like to keep civil unions and marriage separate, but give all the rights and tax breaks that marriage have to civil unions, so they're equal and one doesn't have tax breaks and one doesn't. So they would be equal, just two different names, so we keep definitions straight and people can't use a different definition to impose something that is immoral and argue that it's their constitutional right to marry an animal.
Yeah.
Mr. Moran, 1 minute response.
I and the Nationalist Party are not proponents of bestiality at all. We just want the church to be out of our government. In the state of Dirigo, we take the separation of church and state very seriously, and we believe that marriage is a biblical definition, and we think that such a religious affiliation is not what we want for our form of government, and we want to allow such the legal use of the term marriage, as it stands now, they're in law books, to be separated from the religious one. As we use it legally, we think that it should be able to cover same-sex couples, and they should have the same rights as everybody else in this country. We take kind of the libertarian philosophy that we just want to let people alone, and they can do what they want in their own home. Thank you.
Mr. Babarek, explain your views on the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms. Explain your philosophy and views on that issue.
People may say that the Second Amendment is outdated. Is the First Amendment outdated? Are the other amendments outdated? I would have to say no. Neither is the Second Amendment. You have the right to protect your home, your family, your property. You have that right, and the Second Amendment gives you that right. Now, should people be walking around with automatic machine guns? No. Okay, but they have the right to have a rifle, a shotgun, a handgun, the right to conceal a handgun. They have that right as a United States citizen. And if you look at Pennsylvania alone, on opening day, Turkey Day, 11 million people go out to hunt. That is a huge army of one state, and a lot of other countries don't want to invade the United States. There's a lot of people with guns. But also, guns protect your rights and self-defense. It is your Second Amendment right to be able to own a gun to protect your home, your family, and your rights.
Thank you, and a follow-up that Mr. Moran will have the chance to answer as well. If someone's convicted of domestic violence, should they lose their right to own or possess certain kinds of firearms?
In general, I would say yes. They'd have to go before a court, and a judge would have to decide.
Mr. Moran, the same question, your general philosophy about the Second Amendment, and specifically, should people who are convicted of domestic violence lose the right to possess certain firearms?
I am in full support of our great state of Dirigo supporting the Second Amendment and upholding it in our borders. I think that people do have the right to bear arms on themselves. I think that it is necessary to their protection, like my opponent said. I definitely agree with everything he had to say. I also just would like to touch upon the domestic violence thing, and that I think that the guns in that situation are not the root cause. There's a lot of research out there where people are talking about psychological research about whether knives or guns are harder to use on someone, whether it's the knife that actually kills or the gun that kills, and I think that's way down the road. As it stands now, I think if someone would like to harm another person, it's not the weapon that they have in their hand, it's their intention. So I think in domestic abuse cases, the person having a gun or not is not going to affect it at all, and I think a completely different type of protection should be provided in that case, and not just taking away guns. I think further steps should be taken.
Thank you. Now, in the real world politics, in these debates, politicians always say they won't answer hypothetical questions. But tonight you're going to have to answer at least one of them. Imagine that you're governor. You've won the election. And as you know, as you'll learn with Mr. Banda tonight and tomorrow, one of your most important jobs will be to appoint judges to the state Supreme Court. We're going to hear from one actually later this evening. Imagine that as governor, a panel of lawyers, other judges, and legal scholars have all recommended an experienced lawyer for the Supreme Court. This lawyer is universally respected and obviously qualified. However, the lawyer discloses that when he was 22, he pled guilty to drunk driving. Do you accept the recommendation of the panel and nominate this lawyer? Why or why not? Mr. Moran.
Can I ask how old he is now? Doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter to me, actually. I think that I would accept the nomination. I would accept the advice of the panel. I definitely think that people should be rehabilitated for mistakes they've made in the past at 22 years of age, even though we're thinking that 21 you're fully developed. You aren't really until you're more like 25 or 26. I think that we should be forgiving people for what they do in the earlier years, and later on in life, reevaluate them on their merits at that very point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. And just a follow-up, I did the same to your opponent, a follow-up. We are talking, though, about one of the most important legal jobs in the state. You don't think there's something special about being a Supreme Court justice that might come into play? We're not talking just about an office appointment, but a judge on the highest court. Does that change your thinking at all?
I don't think that would not change my thinking at all. I think that as a Supreme Court Justice, I would take that very seriously. That is a job that someone who has to be extremely qualified has to do, obviously. But I think that no matter what the position is, we should be looking at people based on who they are, who we believe them to be, right at that very point in time. And I think a lot can change over the years. We can't punish everybody. Like, if we punished everybody in this room for what they've done during their childhood, we wouldn't have a lot of future leaders. And I don't think that it's fair to punish someone for something that happened so long ago, especially if you have so much overwhelming evidence to the contrary that supports them in that moment.
Mr. Babrak, same question, same facts. What would you do as governor?
I would have to agree with Mr. Cole. We learn through experience, and this judge obviously had to go through some embarrassing times, embarrassing articles, embarrassing hellos, and he learned that he made a huge mistake, and I'm sure he will never make that mistake again, because hypothetically, it may have cost him this prestigious job. And so, I think you can expect that judge to be on his best behavior for a long time.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of agreement tonight, a lot of I agrees. What's one thing that separates you from your opponent? Mr. Murray.
I would definitely say our views on the economy are a lot different from one another. I think that there's a lot in here in the Federalist Party platform that I'm a little confused about. I think that they're proponents of offshore drilling, nuclear power, an east-west highway. Those are all really great things, but I think those also cost a lot for taxpayers and just people in the state. I understand that the east-west highway wouldn't be necessarily taxpayers, but would put a burden on citizens themselves. And I'm wondering where that money is actually going to come from if we're also cutting government spending under the Federalist Party platform. And I think our opposition to that would be that we really want to promote small businesses in our state, and we want to promote agriculture, tourism, the things our state has always been good at in history. And we also think that raising the sales tax, like I said before, from 5% to 6%, we'll be able to do this. 5 to 6 will be able to balance the budget by adding $160 million to our state revenue that will up to it to take our revenue just above our budget. Thank you.
What separates the Federalists from the Nationalists is that ours is actually easy to understand. If you look at their platform, 6C says possible tax cuts. Possible, meaning they haven't made their mind up, and it's a platform. If you look down at 6F, it says tax credits instead of tax cuts. Contradictory statements. I would like to know what their platform is on that. It's a platform, it needs to be decided. This isn't brainstorming. If you look at our platform, easy to understand. We are creating jobs that are privately funded, like East-West Highway, that would be privately funded, not the state of Maine. Oil, private companies, not coming out of the state's pocket. In fact, increasing revenue by being able to lower our fuel costs, lower our heating costs, sell excess oil, sell nuclear power to Canada, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, sell all that, get money back in the state of Maine, create more corporations, and in turn fuel the economy.
Could I ask Mr. Johnson what our time status is?
7:15, Henry.
Okay. Mr. Badrock, you talked about taxes, you talked about energy. Right now, the main revenue, in fact, probably the only revenue for repairing and maintaining state roads is the gas tax. Would either of you support an increase in the gas tax if it meant better roads or safer roads? Mr. Moran?
Once again, I think that an increase in the sales tax is a lot, but I don't think increasing the gas tax would actually help us any. I think that putting more of a burden on our taxpayers and the people who are in our state constantly is not what we want to do. I think sales tax is going to hit a lot more of out-of-state people coming in to our state of Dirigo, and I think upping the gas tax is just going to hit the people who are here in our state and are looking for jobs in our state. Thank you.
I would also have to agree, I would not approve a increase in gas tax because through our platform, we are planning on going through with these and having a lot more money in the state of Maine also to improve the roads that aren't very good, especially up in the North Counties for those of you who live up there. Yeah, we would not approve the increase in gas tax, especially because we are planning on offshore drilling. Lowering gas prices for you teenagers that drive in the state of Dirigo. Lowering heating costs for your parents.
At this time, we're willing to take some questions from the audience. Hope that all questions are fair and respectful. And I'm first going to ask any nationalist to raise their hand. They'll ask a question of Mr. Badrock. Yes, right here.
Hello, Spencer Gubernatorial from King.
There he is. We all know the name.
Just so I understand correctly, for your balanced budget planned on the Federalist Party platform, what do you mean by tax reform? It seems a little generic.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to specify. Our tax reform, we are going with decreasing taxes across the board, especially corporate tax. Because Maine was voted one of the least friendly states for businesses. And so we want to change that. We want to reverse that. By doing that, we want to lower corporate tax so more businesses come. So even though you have a lower percentage on a bigger number of businesses, you're still getting more money even though the percentage is lower. If you are very unfriendly to businesses, you're not going to have a lot of businesses. So even if you increase that tax on a small amount of businesses, you're not going to get a lot of money. By having more businesses and even a lower percent, you're going to get a lot more revenue.
Mr. Moran, in response, what's your view of your opponent's notions of tax reform?
I think the tax reform of businesses like that is a little irresponsible in our state. I think that lowering the taxes on business actually is just going to shift it elsewhere. I think that if we lower one place, we're going to have to make up that revenue elsewhere. If those people who are making that large amount of money off of their businesses aren't actually going to be putting that back into the state, so we actually would have to hike taxes elsewhere. And I don't think that lowering the tax on business is going to keep attracting more. I think we need to do other things, putting money into our small business fund, looking at infrastructure in the state, doing things like that will actually attract more businesses, because if Maine isn't a good climate for jobs, a lower tax is not going to help a business want to come here.
Thank you. A Federalist question for Mr. Moran. In the far left, right there.
Would you support the Right to Work initiative?
I'm not familiar with that. Can you explain?
It would not require you to be in a labor union if you were to work in, say, a mill. So if you wanted to work in a mill, you wouldn't have to join the labor union.
Yeah, on our party platform, definitely one of our big philosophies is not forcing anybody to do anything. I think that's wrong to have somebody to walk into a job like that and be forced into a union. I would definitely disagree with that.
A nationalist question for Mr. Bambarak. Over there.
Just kind of confused on the need to add
Women's rights.
Thank you. By combining boys and girls state, I think we would simulate real government. Are there women in the Maine state legislature?
Yeah.
There are.
I agree.
Okay. I think we're all wondering why they aren't here. And so, the women's rights thing, it's easy for a guy to talk about abortion and his opinions on it, but it's a lot, there's a much different perspective if a lady were to talk about the right to abortion, and we can hear the different opinions from the person who has to carry the baby around for 9 months. We can hear the different sides of the story if girls were at Girls State, and we can also hear their sides of the stories on everything else, but specifically on rights that really hit home.
Yeah.
Mr. Moran, in about a minute, your views on a woman's right to choose and women's rights in general?
All of the above. Okay, so the question is about the right to choose and about that. I think that, you know, having girls at boys state sounds pretty cool to me. But I also think that saying we're adding women's rights is a little of a big fluffy statement. I think that, and I hope that delegates here would be socially responsible enough to be considering both sides of the issue. I think that everybody has an equal footing on the issue. And yes, I think having another demographic here would make a great difference in the opinions and thoughts that we hear. However, I do think that our delegates here I respect them enough that they would be socially responsible enough to think about all of those things. And as far as a woman's right to choose, we do believe that the current abortion laws are in line with what our party platform is about, and we think that leaving those the way they are right now is very important to us, and we also think that right now isn't quite the time to discuss and try to open that up to debate, since we're already pleased with the laws as they stand.
A Federalist question for Mr. Moran? Andy? Right here.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the first subject of matter on the Nationalist Party platform, in the arts and education, and your increased funding for the arts, we at the Federalist Party were wondering why exactly should we be investing into the arts when some of the world's most innovative countries, such as China or Japan, are mainly focusing on subject matters such as math and science in order to further the economy.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, and that was brought up a lot during our debate, and I actually had a very hard time with this myself, thinking about what would be the appropriate place to place funds in our schools, and I came to the decision myself that right now, at a national level, there's a huge push in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, being the STEM program on a national level. There is a lot of money going into that, and there are organizations all over the country, the PGA, I mean, just couldn't name the amount of organizations, and ExxonMobil are promoting technology on TV, everything like that, and we thought that as a state, we ought to balance that out and put more money towards the arts and education, because there is a lot of data to back up a well-rounded education being a good fit and a good upbringing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. We're now at the point where we're going to hear closing statements from our candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Bauer.
I'm telling you, I urge you to look at the platforms. If you look at my platform, you would see that I moderated a party to not just brainstorm, but research and apply concrete examples to our platform. So that way, legislation starts tonight for me. Legislation starts tonight, not tomorrow morning, not tomorrow midday, not tomorrow night. Where if you look over, I see increased tourism. I would like to know a little bit more about tourism and your ideas for tourism. Whereas ours, you can clearly see East-West Highway. That would increase tourism. There's a concrete example for you to hold on to and understand.
People get around the state
I have experience moderating a crowd, and I would be honored if you chose me as governor. Thank you.
And now the last word from Mr. Murray.
I'd like to spend a couple, just a minute looking over our Nationalist Party platform and talking about how we drafted these as basic tenets to go by. We knew that you guys were going to be coming up with some awesome legislation. There's going to be kids who want to legalize marijuana. There's going to be kids who want to get laser hunting bears. There's going to be kids who want to do something about healthcare reform. There's going to be kids who want to do something about the economy. There's going to be people from all sides of the equation, and we didn't want to throw down 5 specific things that we were going to do. Those are 5 LDs that we can pass in the coming days. These are just basic tenets that we're going to support. We're going to support these basic platforms of our party. And I'd also like to point out that, kind of this is where I diverge from my opponent, but kind of just throw this aside, and just look at me as who you want to be your leader, not this piece of paper. I think that I want to represent everybody in here. I also want to represent kind of the person, just the average guy who's in here, just here for a good time, here for a good experience, here to learn a lot, and I want your voice to be heard. And as governor, I think I would be able to do a great job with that. I really appreciate being up here, you guys listening so intently to me. That's nice. And thank you for having me. Thank you.
We're a few minutes ahead of schedule tonight. I hope that's not a problem. Just in closing, I hope you all vote tonight. I'm sure you all will. I hope that when you go home and as you get older, I hope you also always vote. I hope you understand that Maine is not as small as Dirigo, but Maine's a very small state, and it's very, very easy to become involved, to run for office, to be informed, to build relationships in public service, and I hope you do that. Let's hear it again for our 2 great candidates.